This is the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast, where every Thursday you will have a pirouette of rotating co-hosts, including myself, Caroline Brown, that will delve into topics relating to the over 40s. For aware of this notion that you're going through a midlife crisis, we're going for a crazy over 40s life. It's the time to uncover and rebirth our adolescent years filled with curiosity and all our desires. We do it right here on the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast. We look into relationships, emotional, sexual, financial wellness, entrepreneurships, providing you with an enjoyable delivery every Thursday. And don't forget to share and subscribe so you can keep updated on all the episodes as and when they become available. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, Crazy Over 40s Live listeners. Welcome back. This is a Crazy Over 40s Live podcast. I'm your host, Caroline Brown. And before we go any further, don't forget to share and subscribe so you can keep updated on all the episodes as and when they become available. We should continue with values. Let your values be you. Rachel Wallace Lane, who's a accredited personal and leadership coach, is here today to help us explore that a little bit more. Rachel has been partnering with individuals, teams, and businesses to maximize their personal and professional potential. She's been doing this for over 20 years. She's here to uncover what's most important to you, exploring the significance of values and discovering how this can help you to support and drive your ambition. She's here on the Crazy Over 40s Live after the interlude. Listeners, as I said to you before, we have the lovely Rachel Wallace Lane joining us, who is a personal and leadership coach. Welcome to us, Rachel.
Hi, Caroline. It's so nice to be with you.
Oh, it's lovely for you to be with us on the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast. We're in our over 40s and things just get a little bit complicated because we don't know which way to turn. And I know that you specialize in core values as being the best curator in building your own potential, whatever that may be. Can you tell us a little bit more about you, first of all, before we delve into the good stuff?
Sure, of course. You find me in Edinburgh in Scotland today. I'm a qualified coach, counsellor, and mindfulness practitioner. My intention is to make these services more accessible to people and to help people see their true potential and really create the life that they're looking for. So I've had 15 years experience of working in the corporate sector in London, marketing, PR, facilities. And then I had 15 years developing award-winning individuals and services that prevent homelessness. And that has particularly interested me in system change and creating a better experience for everybody that's using the services. Laterally, I took all of that experience and started working at a strategic level across the corporate, public and voluntary sectors, looking just to support organisations, the values-led organisations, develop a cultural transformation, co-creating learning and development programmes that focus on a values-led approach, so resilience, well-being and diversity.
Well, I said delve into the good stuff. You are the good stuff, Rachel.
Thank you.
And more. You are. Now, tell us why values and resilience are so important. I mean, the over 40s, we think we've got it all. But sometimes I think we forget about the simple things can actually help us a lot more than the more complicated things that we think we need to establish before we make the changes happen, if we choose to.
Yeah, do you know, you really, really hit the nail on the head there in just that, sometimes we focus on the big things, but actually bringing ourselves back to, like what's really, really important to us and what drives us. And as a coach, often that I take time with people just to kind of ask those questions, to kind of kick back and kind of go, so what is really important to you? And so often it comes back to those, the values that we have. And just using those values as like the cornerstones for
Mm.
like all our decision making can be so helpful.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, they can be helpful. I mean, I had to look at my values after actually
Mm.
the breakup of my marriage, and I thought, oh goodness, because at that point in time, I forgot all about what was actually my values. Because I think up until that point, I think I adopted everybody else's values.
Hmm.
I actually led a life that I thought was
Yeah.
actually what I wanted. And I realized, oh my God, it took the
Mhm.
breakup of my marriage. Do you find that actually happens to people sometimes? It takes an event for people to
Quite
really
often
think
it can
about
be
things.
yeah, you're absolutely right.
Mm,
Can be sort
right.
of like a sort of trigger
Yeah.
that happens to us, as you're saying, about your marriage. For me, it was a life-changing event in our family, and just sort of sitting back and going, oh, is this what I really want? Can I
Mm.
share a story with you, actually?
Go on, please. Yes, we like stories here.
Yeah. So it was one of those interesting things, as I said, life-changing situation happened in our family.
Mm,
Everything had to change. So work had to change, and just how we were sort of living needed to change. And so, as a coach, what I would do with my clients is I would go, right, well, let's get a big piece of paper and kind of see what you want your life to look like. And so I was kind of like, oh, I should do that because that's what I do with other people. So I did.
right.
And it was that kind of, oh, okay, so if this is what I want my life to look like, so I want to work a particular amount of hours in a day, I need to work from home, but never really spent a lot of time looking at my own values and why they were
Mm,
important to me. So I don't know if I could ask you, if it's okay to ask you the question of, what are your values,
sure.
Caroline?
Well, I realized that I was in a career before I was stay-at-home mum. I was in a career where I wasn't creative. I didn't feel freedom. I didn't feel that I had enough freedom to do
Mm,
exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't feel that I was honoring my integrity.
mm,
And those were the values that allowed me to be my best self. And actually becoming a mom actually gave me a bit of
mhm,
escape from being in that place where I was working. And as I said, that in my relationship, it also felt that I wasn't following my values. I felt the same thing,
mm,
freedom. I didn't have a lot of creativity. Um,
mm,
I mean, I'm saying it in seems quite short, but it isn't. It's a lot bigger than that. But
mm,
essentially, I didn't feel that I was myself, whatever myself was. I wasn't feeling that I was balanced where I was in my life, and that led me
mm,
to kind of accept some changes that were coming to me, whether I wanted it or not. But
mm.
now I feel that I'm following through and living in my values. I do feel that because I don't feel so overwhelmed
Mm.
as I did before, and I thought that was one of the signs that I knew I wasn't quite happy.
Yeah. And it's interesting that, isn't it? And why do you think that there's that element of, you said, feeling a bit more relaxed in
Mm,
that if you're looking at your values?
yeah,
Why?
because I'm living in my values.
Yeah.
I feel that I'm not living a lie. I'm being authentic.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you use that, you said sort of use those words, being my best self.
Mm,
And I think
definitely.
that's so nice, isn't it? And it almost is like being your best self, being your true self. So mine are one of them is curiosity, and it's looking at that,
Ah,
with the beginner's mind, sort of actively listen to different opinions and ideas and explore what solutions they might bring, because I know. So my preference is to sort of plough ahead. I'm quite stubborn. Anybody who knows me knows how we like Caroline. And so I am Tory time. Sometimes I'm just like, oh right, yeah, let's
oh,
crack on and do that. And I
you're one of
do
those.
not sit back I am.
Right.
I don't sit back and go, oh, what impact will that have on other people? But because I know that, because I'm emotionally intelligent enough to know that, the curiosity is super important for me. So if I have to make a big decision, it's kind of like, okay, so be curious, Rachel. What's going to happen
Mm. Mm.
to other people around you when this happens? So yeah, so it's interesting, isn't it? Bringing our, and I think, when we tip over into the over 40s, I'm now over 50, but that element of actually knowing that it's okay to be, to use your words, the best self, to be your true self, and that if we're working to our values, then yeah, that's good enough.
It is good to know. I feel with when we get to our over 40s, because we've got so
Mm,
much responsibilities, and sometimes we're taking on
mm,
other people's, they're not even our own, to be honest. We do feel that it's somewhat like quite selfish to actually kind of
mm,
start thinking about ourselves, and really it isn't, but we have to justify why, if we want a break, if we like to have maybe a week's break somewhere, or 3 days, or even a
mm,
day, or even an hour, we have to
mm.
justify why I had too much during the day, rather than saying, right, I just fancy a break, I just feel like put my feet up, I don't want to be doing anything today, rather than giving it a whole like sentence about why you need to take that break.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things, and I don't mean to be gender specific here, but just I don't know whether it's a female trait of always wanting to be doing something. I need to do my housework
Mm.
every day. It's kind of like,
Yeah,
really? Could you
right.
not just take a break and go and sit in your lovely garden and watch the flowers grow, or have a cup of
Absolutely.
tea and you know. So yeah, I think there's that thing of
Yeah.
we also have that what's what am I trying to say? There's that thing when the emotional intelligence and being emotionally to be able to say, so as we get older we become more emotionally literate, so we're understanding not just what our feelings are, so that's the emotional intelligence, but actually being able to explain what it is, so the emotional literacy, and looking
Yeah.
at, sorry, go on.
No, no, I was going to say, explain more about that, because that's something that you actually do talk about, isn't it, in your coaching? So tell us a bit more. Why is that important, and what is it?
Yeah, so I have a really interesting sort of thing. When people go, oh, it's just what I do. There's nothing that is just what I do. So it might be, you're laughing. So, um, so I spend a lot of time listening to people, and one thing that keeps coming up is how often people say, it's just what I do. And how
Mm.
often do you hear yourself or others saying, "Oh, it's just what I do," and you brush it off as if there's nothing, there's nothing to notice here. It's not something important. And
Yes.
when I hear parents, when they're complimented on bringing up their children, so feeding, clothing, nurturing, and in essence keeping another human being alive, they just brush it off and they go, "Oh, that's just what's expected." It's what we do as parents. Or it was lovely. I was in a shop the other day, and there was this lovely person behind the counter, and she just had taken the time with this woman beforehand. She was an older lady, and she was doing her shopping, and she was just, how are you? And she gave her a big smile and was really interested. And I just said to her afterwards, I was going, that was so nice. And she's going, oh, that's just what I do. It's part of my job. And I said, well, that might be the only person that person sees all week, and you've
True.
just made that experience so nice for them. Um,
Mm.
so I think we're able to do this and see that it's a real opportunity to learn and explore our contributions when we actually can say, that thing that you just do, it's
Mm.
amazing. And just
Right.
taking a moment to kind of go, well, let's just sit with that and look at the impact. That curiosity I was telling you about.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
there's that element of let's be curious about the impact.
Mm.
But I think
Mm.
as in Scotland as a nation, we're not very good at blowing our own trumpets, particularly. Some find it strange and a bit uncomfortable, particularly if it's behaviour that we've learnt. So, were you ever told as a child, it's not nice to brag, it's not polite to talk about your achievements? And when I think about that, I'm always reminded of Ian McDermott, who was the founder of ITS. He spoke about the importance of how the best feedback feeds forward. And I love this. I like to consider that by sharing people's actions and the ripple effect of those actions have on those around them, and how this becomes real food for thought and food for growth, truly feeding it forward. So yeah, so maybe the next time you hear that statement, it's just what you do from yourself or from others, maybe take a moment and just kind of reflect on, that it's just, just do, and really consider the impact on others.
No, I think it's very important to bathe in your talents and gifts and your values, as you pointed out, because I think it's really kind of establishing, your own importance, your own contribution that you make. And if you're not going to tell and acknowledge it yourself, who else is going to do it? Well, you did it, isn't it? You actually let that lady know that what she did there was so fundamental in possibly in someone's life. And as you mentioned, maybe the first time this person's actually heard that. And that could have made her day, her week, her month, or, created a change within her that she possibly didn't think that was actually going to happen for her on that day, that time. You talk about resilience, and that's part of it, actually, as we're describing it, is kind of, people do face adversity. We all do, something that we can't escape, some levels more than others. So something I feel is something really important in actually taking, what life throws at you, which is really hard and difficult to do. You get up and it's really hard to get up, but explain why, resilience is so important, because we can't escape adversity.
I think resilience is so important for many reasons. It helps us develop a protection against experiences of overwhelm. There's so many times where we can feel overwhelmed, that to actually just be able to sit back and remember that we need to look after ourselves to be resilient. We have to give ourselves time and space and that love and joy and all of those very basic needs that we have. And if we can do that, that will our resilience. So often I just work with clients, again, going back to what you said at the beginning, Caroline, that looking at our true self, our best self, resilience really can support us with that.
Yeah. And people think that either you have resilience or you don't, but you can actually build resilience, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, you can build resilience. And there's that of being, like as a coach, I always feel it's such a privilege to be at the table with somebody who's brave enough to explore what'll help them make the changes that they want. So, really looking at those basic principles as human beings, like resilience, is so important, and time really, really well spent.
Time well spent. And it's going to be well spent with you, because you actually help people to get to that point where they can feel that they are living their best self. Tell us a little bit more about your work and how people can find you.
Sure. So my passion is people, Caroline. I want to watch people reach their true potential, watching them create the best world for them and those around them. So I work virtually, I work all around the world, creating time and space, a safe space to ask those probing and challenging questions that we've dipped into this morning.
Yeah. Wonderful. And where can they find you? Tell us your details.
Sure. So you can find me. I have my website, which is rachelwallacelane.com. I'm also on LinkedIn at Rachel Wallace Lane. And yeah, so look me up. If you're interested in making a change and creating the life that you want, I'd love to hear from you.
Fabulous. And Rachel, any parting words for my listeners?
I think my main thing is just creating yourself a little bit of space. Now, we were talking earlier about taking that break. I would encourage you to take that break.
Definitely in this weather. Goodness, it's
Absolutely.
hot. Take your break, listener. Thank you so much, Rachel, for coming on the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast.
Oh, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Caroline. Thank you.
Thank you again, Rachel, for coming on the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast. She left her details. You can get hold of all of my guests, Instagram, Facebook, Gmail, the crazyover40slife.com website. Well, this is Black History Month in the US, and so we shall be celebrating those who are making changes. Having gained a financial independence in her early 40s, Alicia Holmes shall be here to tell us how we can bridge the gap of financial literacy for women of colour. She's cultivated key mindsets that continue to ascend her journey and strongly believes that community and a support system are one of the greatest catalysts towards success. We shall be here on the Crazy Over 40s Live podcast on Thursday, so stay tuned for that episode. And don't forget to share and subscribe so you can keep updated on all the episodes as and when they become available. And I'm your host, Caroline Brown.